We're excited to be here today for the Connected TV Advertising Summit. The topic of this panel is programmatic and programmatic's role in CTV advertising. I'm Linda Claricio, the former president of Nielsen. I'm also a board member of Simplify and Taboola, and I'm excited to be here today with this great panel. So let me just say who the panelists are and then ask them all to tell you all a little bit more about themselves and their role in programmatic TV advertising. So we have Reed Barker, who's the head of advertising at Philo, John Ross, who's the director of product strategy at DoubleVerify, Lauren Weissman, who's the director of programmatic and OTT partnerships at Xandr, and Dave Puginis. I don't know if Dave, I pronounced your name properly.
That's not too bad. Yeah, Puginis.
Puginis, who's the director of strategic and programmatic partnerships at AMC Networks. So Lauren, do you want to just talk a few minutes about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Linda. I'm Lauren Weissman. I'm VP of OTT and Programmer Partnerships at Xandr. I actually joined Xandr back when we were AppNexus, when we were first building out our sell-side video and CTV strategy. And it's been really exciting to be a part of that growth as we become Xandr with the backing of AT&T. Now I'm working with our programmers and OTT apps who use our sell-side platform to monetize their inventory and help solve a lot of the challenges that they're seeing today in CTV.
Thanks, Lauren. Reed, do you want to talk about yourself for a few minutes?
Sure. I'm Reed Barker. I'm head of advertising at Philo. Philo is an entertainment and lifestyle focused virtual MVPD, which means, we have the same networks you're used to seeing on cable from, AMC, Viacom, Discovery, and others. And, on the programmatic side, we've really leaned in 100%. We've never had a direct sales force, so we're excited to talk about that today.
Dave?
Thanks, Linda. Hi, everyone. Dave Puginis, Director of Strategy and Programmatic Partnerships at AMC Networks. I oversee our account management team on the programmatic side, our yield and inventory team on the direct sales side, but most of my time is spent on programmatic partnerships. AMC Networks, we're 5 networks that are focused on storytelling and premium and diverse content and offering a powerful environment for advertisers to convey their message.
Thanks, Dave. And John, you're the last person. And as we talked about before we started the panel, it would be helpful also to talk about DoubleVerify and what DoubleVerify is doing in CTV.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm John Ross. Director of Product Strategy at DoubleVerify, and I lead our CTV products. So yeah, DoubleVerify, if you don't know us, we're the folks out there that's helping authenticate the ad ecosystem, and in particular CTV ecosystem. Within this space, we've seen basically all the same issues that you see in mobile and desktop, the other digital areas. So more and more our services are needed around connected TV. And we see connected TV advertising basically skyrocketing. We're seeing a large shift from your traditional digital ad spend into this new space of programmatic. And holistically, what we're seeing in this is more so around like PMP deals and programmatic deals that are basically hybrids between digital direct deals as well as programmatic. That's a little about us.
Thanks. So we're going to focus on 3 areas on this panel. First, on the supply side of programmatic CTV, then really on the buy side, and what are the drivers of spend or the things inhibiting spend. And then lastly, talk about some of the challenges in the industry. So this is a big industry. It's estimated to be over $10 billion of spend through programmatic advertising for CTV in 2021. But let's talk about the supply side. We have Dave and Reed here who are our supply representatives. Can you talk a little bit about your strategy from a content provider perspective in terms of what content you put on through programmatic exchanges, what you don't? Do you have a gating strategy? How do you sort of approach this? And maybe Dave, let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things I like about AMC Networks is we do have support from management for entrepreneurial type efforts, and we're pretty quick and nimble and forward thinking. So for us, we're in full support of programmatic. We try to be forward thinking and looking to the future of how people will buy, and try to get ahead of that and be prepared for that. So I think while there may be some companies that are a little more reluctant to, they're trying to hold on to the structure of historical deals that they have in place. To us, programmatic's a transaction type. It's a faster way to do things. It's an easier way to do things. So we have strived, and we're in a place now where we make all of our inventory, we're 100% programmatic enabled. And even my role, I oversee programmatic and direct sales. So I'm not seeing them as two separate ends of the company. They're just a different way of buying the same inventory, the same type of conversation with the buyers. So for us, I think we've really tried to structure our ad stack, our strategy, our messaging in a more unified way, and we're just seeing tremendous growth on the programmatic side.
So do you think you're representative? It's not of the industry, the TV industry. It sounds like you may not be. And again, I'm curious, like Lauren, what you're seeing, if you think AMC is more of an outlier. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but what are the rest of you seeing from the TV provider perspective?
I think from the majority of conversations that I have with our programmer clients, I think there's kind of a misperception that programmer inventory isn't available programmatically. It's really about how it's made available, right? So it's not on the open market. And in fact, the open market doesn't play a very big role in programmatic and CTV in general. But that premium inventory is made available through PMPs and programmatic guaranteed. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit later in transaction models. It's really about a relationship between a buyer and seller and the control that's available there, but bringing more automation, first-party data on the buy side and sell side that's just more easily enabled through programmatic.
Reed, do you want to talk about? I know
Yeah,
this is whole life. So.
Yeah, so Philo's leaned into programmatic from the beginning. We didn't inherit a direct sales force like a lot of other platforms, so we decided just to be 100% programmatic and resellers. And what that means for us is, as we've grown our footprint, when I look at a perspective from a television perspective, and you're looking at reach, in the US that means 100 million households if you're a broadcaster. Well, there are 5 or 6 virtual MVPDs, and I think we announced last fall that we have 800,000 subs, but you need to combine those unique audiences in order to have a reach, and programmatic is the way to do that. So we work very closely with our partners both on the SSP as well as the DSP side to make sure that they understand the value of the premium content that we're providing. They understand the value of the contextual signals and the audience that we're bringing, and that we're able, when they're making a buy, trying to reach as many unique audiences they can in the CTV space, especially in the virtual MVPD category, that they're able to buy apples to apples across all these folks, because there are not a lot of people subscribing to multiple virtual MVPDs. I mean, you may buy multiple virtual SVOD or AVOD services, but when you're looking at a selection of channels that you want to purchase, basically as to replace or augment your cable package or to complement those, and we have a very focused entertainment and lifestyle package. We find that we need to be able to, in the programmatic space, curate a number of PMPs. We have very little on the open programmatic, but we work very hard to curate PMPs based on contextual signals or audience demographics, so that we're seeing that both as a mechanism for people to buy into Philo, but also to place inventory. If they're looking to place demand across multiple CTV devices and trying to look for those unique audiences, we want to be a place where it's very easy for them to look at apples to apples and see programmatic not as it's really a mechanism to simplify everything sort of the way it used to be.
So it sounds like you're all pretty much in agreement that it's not supply in and of itself that's the issue, but more a diversity in how you can transact for that supply. I guess that's what you were saying, you know, whether it's through a PMP, and actually maybe we should talk about that now. You know, what are you seeing the sort of predominant way of transacting being? Is it programmatic guaranteed? Is it PMP? Is it open exchange? Will open exchange ever really be a good form of transacting for a relatively finite amount of inventory, such as represented by CTV? I don't know who wants to take that one first. Maybe you, Lauren.
Yeah,
And we'll go to you, John, in a second.
Yeah, I can jump in there, Linda. I mean, I think the first point I want to make is that we're not talking about display. So programmatic and CTV is not remnant, it's incremental demand. And I think Reed said it's a transaction model, or maybe Dave said it's a way to transact. So we're seeing the majority of spend come through private marketplaces today, whether that's a direct relationship between a buyer and a seller in a one-to-one PMP, or whether that's leveraging really curation as a way to provide scale to buyers who might be targeting a particular category or audience type. They know that they're receiving premium inventory, and the publisher's aware of who that end buyer is as well. And then I'd add that programmatic guaranteed is definitely growing. And I think for those on the sell side, you know, maybe those programmers who are more dipping their toes in programmatic waters, programmatic guaranteed is kind of the place to start. Because that provides kind of the most certainty and control both to buyer and seller of what you're getting. Maybe less flexibility on targeting, but particularly for reaching a specific audience with a specific time period, like during a basketball game, programmatic guaranteed is a great use case there.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm curious. I'm sorry, John, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to completely agree with Lauren there. When we speak with our buyers, basically what we hear is no one wants to do the open marketplace around CTV. I'm sure we'll get into some of those issues, but it's PMP focused and PG focused, and both buyers and sellers like that model, because the sellers, they get to keep their relationships, and then the buyers, they get this automation, which is in the end what they want as well.
So Dave and Reed, I mean, how do you approach it? I mean, versus PMP versus programmatic guaranteed?
Yeah, I think for us, and a little bit what Lauren was saying, we started off heavy with PMP, and it was sort of a lifesaver for us in a way to solve our inventory situation, because we had a lot of other media companies took the approach to build walls around their content. Like, if you want to watch this show, you have to subscribe to this particular service. And viewer wise, we took a very different approach. Our strategy was to let viewers watch our content wherever they wanted. So we partnered with people like Philo or AT&T and any other streaming content service, streaming service that we could find, to put our content there and make sure that we could serve ads into it. So very rapidly, we had this massive extra bucket of supply that we didn't have the year before. So we took advantage of that with PMP and really expanded our PMP business. What we're seeing as far as transaction models is we're seeing some of our direct IO, these buyers that were trying PMPs and they found like, hey, this works, I like this, and it's easy. Let me convert some of my direct IO over into programmatic guaranteed. So we were much bigger, I think, on the PMP side, and now we're seeing the programmatic guaranteed start to take off as people are finding that programmatic works and it's easy, and so that's kind of what we're seeing there.
Yeah, and I'd echo a lot of what Dave said. For us, you know, because we didn't start with the direct sales team, you know, programmatic is a way for us to start working back into the chain and having stronger relationships. So PMP, setting up private marketplaces allowed us to not only talk closer to the buyer, but understand control the CPMs that we're doing, but also understand what they're looking for in terms of first or third-party signals on the data. So what audiences are they looking for? What data segments can we create based on our usage that are important to them? If we're looking for people who watch a lot of home improvement shows or people who watch a lot of horror movies, there are things that we can talk to them directly and say, what are you looking for and what can we build out? I mean, we've used those relationships really to build out our product roadmap across the board on what kind of contextual signals we send, who we partner with on identity. All of those have been built on relationships that started as PMPs and extended further down the line. And PMPs see, just like you said, Dave, an introduction to someone you can have a direct relationships down the road. So, as we grow and expand, we see, that sort of being, as we keep talking about these walls, I see PMPs as sort of being a gate, to a larger community back there that we've been able to build on in terms of partnerships and relationships.
So it sounds like you're all in agreement here too, that the industry is evolving away from PMPs and more into programmatic guaranteed model. Do you think open exchange is always going to be a small percentage of CTV inventory? I mean, John, you said that. I mean, if you look down a few years, or Reed, what do you think?
Well, I think, there's always been in television a sort of a remnant layer, whether it was direct sales, for direct marketing or other things. There's always been sort of that layer. And I think that, there may be a layer for that, especially, as we're talking a lot of, machine to machine discussions, there's always something that, something may not happen. So if you have an open marketplace deal that can, fill a remnant slot, that's great. But, we're always being very careful about not having a race to the bottom and, saying, oh, demand for this month looks to be down. Let's, race to fill everything. I mean, we saw that last year with COVID when you saw so many people, dive out of the advertising marketplace. We made very conscious decision that no, we need to maintain, the premium value of what we're doing and not race to, an open marketplace that, while might have short-term revenue gains, but have long-term impacts on CPMs and just sort of how we value, what we see as premium.
Well, talking about open exchanges is the perfect way to ask John about DoubleVerify and the importance of transparency, in terms of the whole CTV programmatic ecosystem and where DoubleVerify's role is an important role as a player in sort of providing that transparency. So can you talk a little bit about that, John?
Yeah, definitely. One of the reasons why buyers like the PMPs and PGs so much and keeping those relationships is, it gives them some safety in knowing that, okay, I gave my bucket of spend to AMC or to Philo or whoever it is, and there's a relationship there. Whereas if you're just doing open marketplace, you honestly, it's a black hole. You don't know what you're getting. You see the signals in the bid, and this is where DV steps in and helps our clients understand, okay, if you're on the open marketplace and you're bidding for XYZ, is that actually what you're getting? And a lot of times, unfortunately, in CTV especially, it's not what they're actually getting. So this is forcing the buyers really to use verification services like us. It's making them scared of the open marketplace. Once the ecosystem has matured a bit more, and hopefully this fraud is less and less over time, we're able to tackle it as an industry. Then maybe hopefully the open marketplace is a bit more appetizing. But until then, basically DV, we're authenticating that yes, they are serving into AMC and such, which is a really basic question, but it's what we're needed for, basically.
How much fraud do you think is happening on the open marketplaces right now for CTV?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a lot. We are running tests right now. It's double-digit percentages. It's big time. It's not as much in the PMP side of space, where again, it's like these real relationships, but open marketplace is pretty dicey.
Yeah, I think on fraud, as a publisher, we work with folks like Xandr and other reputable SSPs. We make sure we maintain our ads.txt and adapps.txt. We also verify every we have a subscriber base, it's authenticated. So we're pretty certain that we're not, sending invalid traffic. But, it's like the same thing. If someone's going to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, on, Broadway, don't buy it because it's going to be fraud. So that's why we try to make sure we're working with very reputable people upstream. But sometimes you can't help. People will buy something and say it's fraud. But, from our perspective, it's like we're not doing anything that should do fraud. And if you haven't checked those boxes, am I going through a reputable DSP or SSP? Does the ads.txt files match up? Then, sort of buyer beware on that side.
I mean, Lauren, do you want to, people were talking about Xandr. So do you want to talk about what Xandr's doing?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, we've already talked about the importance of deals and PMPs as a way to monitor inventory. I think what we sometimes forget is that there's a lot of CTV long tail inventory out there in the world. But the majority of time when we're talking about premium TV inventory, premium CTV inventory, we're talking about a fairly small handful of apps. These are the distributors that aggregate content from all of the major programmers. And then of course, there's some direct consumer apps as well. There are a lot of entry points, but the inventory is fairly consolidated. So I think from a buy side perspective, buyers need to be aware of who they're buying from. And again, that relationship perspective comes into play. The other thing I'd add, we've really doubled down on our marketplace development efforts at Xandr. So that's a team that's really focused on building out our CTV and video premium marketplace. And we've created a library of over 1,000 PMPs that are easily targetable for our buyers. And those are all focused on different segmentation and packaging of premium CTV inventory. So we've done a lot of work to make it easy for buyers to know what they're getting, and to set up those deals with more efficiency. And then of course, for the programmer and publisher, to see more demand coming through those channels.
So in the time we have left, I'd like to talk about challenges in the industry, things that are preventing the industry from being even bigger on the programmatic side in CTV. So we talked earlier about some of them, and I think it would be helpful for you all to share some of that. I mean, there's measurement issues, there's frequency capping issues, there's fragmentation issues, and maybe John, why don't you start on the measurement side?
Yeah, so on the measurement side, honestly, it comes down to some of the basics. Buyers have a really hard time knowing where their ad is serving, and that's something very fundamental to advertising. And especially what we see as a blocker to the expansion of spend in this space is the linear TV buyers. They're trying to move over. They're looking at this space. They see this black hole, whether it's programmatic or really otherwise, and they're saying, look, in linear TV, I get a campaign and I know the exact delivery. I know the episode, the show, the time slot. They know everything about where the ad is serving. And they just see this CTV space, whether programmatic or not, where they don't get that info. And if they do, it's not really verified, at least at the show level. So that transparency, being able to measure that, like where the campaign is really serving into, that is going to lock a lot of the TV advertising spend. And that'll be a big addition.
Reed, do you try to solve that within Philo?
Yeah, what we do, we're in MVPD, which has some of the same rules, and Dave can tell us that, I can't sell The Walking Dead at 9 o'clock because we're a distributor. So we have our time slots in the middle of there. But we try to solve for that by passing contextual signals like genre and rating so that people know that they're in a brand safe environment. So if they don't want to advertise in the TV MA, we know that we can block that and set up these around the context that we have. I mean, we're fairly transparent on, and we're trying to be more transparent on what we can provide in terms of where something ran, but we also have to be very careful about not targeting, things directly in competitive nature with, our programming partners. So there's, we're trying to figure out what more contextual signals can we offer to help people feel safe and feel like they know where their advertising is running. And it's a continual dialogue that we have.
If I could add a comment on contextual, I'm pretty sure I heard Reed say that word contextual maybe 4 times, which it's really important, and it's something that we're doing a lot of work on at Xandr. And I think one of the challenges today is that the sell side has all this valuable data, whether or not you can disclose what show is being watched, but category, genre, rating, whether it's live or VOD, those types of things. But there isn't a standard across the industry to actually assign that metadata. So it's very difficult for a buyer to actually target and report on that. So kind of one of our key initiatives right now is building out that standardized taxonomy for all of that metadata to make it easier for buyers to target and report, and then operationally make it more easy for the sell side, and then in turn, of course, drive more demand to the sell side as well.
Great. I mean, I think we can talk about this for hours, and it's an important impediment because this industry doesn't solve this. And at the end of the day, it will constrain demand. I mean, Lauren, you were also talking about fragmentation being an issue and a challenge. And, maybe it would be good to have in the remaining minutes talk about that a little bit, and also maybe hear from you, Dave, on that, since you're a seller with clear rights on your own. So Lauren, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think about fragmentation a lot, and I think it falls into a couple of categories. So, if we think about just the sell side tech stack, typically you have an ad server, you have one or multiple SSP partners, you have a server side ad insertion partner. And look, we all know that there are some ad tech platforms out there in the industry who kind of want to keep everything in-house and have a more closed approach to all of those systems working together. I believe very strongly that the way that we're actually going to progress and solve some of these big challenges in fragmentation is creating open tech and open solutions that can help those kind of technology stacks connect. I think one opportunity to do that is through header bidding in CTV, or really whatever the appropriate name for it in CTV, to allow multiple demand sources, valuable differentiated demand sources, to plug in and compete with direct. So tech stack is the first, and then just the point that I'd add on to that is that we're dealing with a full ad pod, a commercial break. So we're not just talking about making a decision about one ad to serve, but what ads to combine for the user. So that kind of creates more fragmentation, because it matters not just what ads coming from programmatic from an SSP, but also how that interacts with a direct sold campaign. And so I think header bidding's come a long way to help construct ad pods and make sure that Coke and Pepsi aren't running back to back, or that I'm not seeing the same ad over and over again, which is always so annoying as a user.
Dave, do you agree?
Yeah. So I talked at the beginning how we are so heavy programmatic right now. When I walked in the door at AMC 3 years ago, we were 99% legit, 99% direct sold. Like, we had a tiny bit of open exchange, and now we are 60-40 towards programmatic revenue wise. So that's in a very short time frame, a rapid shift. And we did have to tear our ad stack apart and redo it to be able to handle a more unified environment. So yeah, and also to be able to accommodate, we have digital focused buyers, but we also have a linear business, and we have linear buyers with different KPIs and different needs. And I agree with what Lauren said. We did have to completely redo our ad stack to be able to create a more unified environment.
Does anyone else want to add to this? Okay, well, I think we're wrapping up then. So, complicated topic, a lot of demand, still a lot of challenges. And, we hope this has been an interesting panel for all of you. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And thank you for listening to us.